indeed a privilege to be in an AA meeting. My name is Joe, and I am an alcoholic. And by the graceful, loving, and forgiving God, I'm sober again today, and that's a miracle. And I've been sober in this wonderful program ever since I learned how. And I learned how from folks like you in meetings like this one, in a 12-step program of action. My sober date's October 26, 1969. And I don't tell you that to impress you, but I want you to know it impresses hell out of me. It really does. You know, when I got here, I came here, and I was sent here, really, a guy that loved me when I couldn't love myself. I didn't come into Alcoholics Anonymous. I hadn't had a drink in 45 days when I got here. They turned me out of the asylum. I'm grateful I went there. Because, you see, I didn't know nothing about the disease of alcoholism. And I didn't know nothing about Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's where I found out maybe I might be one. And I came to you people hoping I'm one. Because Bob told me when he turned me loose, he said, Joe, you got the mind of a chronic alcoholic. He said, your chances of staying sober outside the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is like a snowball in hell. I said, Bob, I'm going to Alcoholics Anonymous. He asked me if I knew where the old 24-hour club was in Houston. I said, no, sir, I don't know nothing about no AA. He started drawing a map. And I said, Bob, you don't need to draw that map. I know where that house is. I said, it's about 8 blocks from my home. All I thought it was, one time me and one of my old wino buddies went by there, and y'all was having a eating meeting or something. They was out there eating. And I always noticed when people was eating. And I asked him, Clayton, what is that, a boarding house? He said, no, I heard that's where a bunch of old drunks go get sober and go get drunk again. And that's all I knew about that place. And Bob told me to go there. And I went there, and there was a man there when I got there to tell me what to do. And this man that was there was a guy that I was drug up with down on the waterfront. That's where I got that name. I didn't come from a good Christian home like most alcoholics. I heard in here they think this is a breeding ground for alcoholics, a good Christian home. I came from a broken home. My grandmother raised me, or drugged me up. She was a Baptist. She was a black belt Baptist. And she had me on God's hit list time I was 10 years old. I'd like to stand here today and try to tell you that alcohol caused all my problems. But I had a lot of problems before I ever took a drink. I had a lot of feelings that I didn't know. I had a lot of things going on inside me that I didn't understand. It's kind of like I heard one old boy say it like the wind was blowing through all the time. I knew I wasn't like them other kids. I couldn't get along with them. And I knew they didn't like me. There was evidence to that. We could play hide and go seek and wouldn't none of them look for me. I had to just stay here. When it come time for little boys go talking to little girls, I couldn't do that. I felt like when I walked up to you, I owed you an apology just for being in your presence. If you stepped on my foot, I felt like I owed you an apology for having my foot in the way. But after I started drinking and had a drink in me, you better not step on my foot. It's different. Oh, I made 13 years sober. I made it from the time I was born till I was 13. and I had a slip. And I remember it just like it was today. There were 2 drinks that I really remember. It was my first one and my last one. And I remember them because they're so important to me. I remember that first one because it made me feel so good. It made me okay. It made me all right. The wind stopped blowing, and I was whole. I was as good as. Now, my friend that introduced me to this wine, it didn't do him that way. Last time I heard from him, or heard about him, he's a very successful businessman in Houston. Man, he handed me that thing, and I took a drink of it, and it went down. And all the way down and all the way back up, it just started changing things. And I looked around, and it hadn't done him that way. He turned green. And he was puking. I mean, gurgitating. We don't say puking in AA much anymore. But that's the way we used to detoxify. We used to puke a lot. I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "I don't like it." I said, "Man, give it to me." Because I had a feeling from that first drink there ain't going to be enough of it. Where did it come from? Who makes it? I always had that feeling it ain't going to be enough. I could have a 55-gallon barrel sitting beside me and I'd have that feeling it ain't enough. I worked on that Houston waterfront most of my natural life. I worked in whole them big ships where there's thousands and thousands and thousands of cases of alcohol from all over this world. And I could be sitting right on top of it and I'd have that feeling it ain't enough. But thank God, on October the 26th, 1969, I don't know whether I got enough or not. I don't think any old drunk ever gets enough. But I got all I could stand. All I could stand. And it happened in here. It didn't happen outside. I didn't come to on October 26, 1969, saying, "Goody, goody, today I'm going to get to go to AA." I came to that morning the same shape I'd been in as far back as I could remember. But something happened. Something happened. I had made one shot at AA, and this didn't come to my conscious mind till I'd been around here sober 5 years. And I remember going there because the family doctor told me not to come back to his office anymore. He said, "You tell Joe don't come back. He's too heartbreaking." He said, "His liver's gone." He said he should have done been dead 2.5, 3 years ago. I don't know how he's lived this long. He said, "I've gone as far with him as my medical experience can carry me, and he needs help." And they called another doctor. And I went to see this doctor with the idea in my head that this doctor was a little further advanced in the liver business probably than he was. Then I'd go see him. But I went into that doctor's office, and he done me the greatest favor that's ever been done for me. He had one of these old blue books on his desk. I didn't know what it was then. Didn't know. But it was there. And I walked in his door, and he looked at me and said, "My God, you're the sorriest looking piece of human flesh I've seen in a long time." He said, "I can't help you." It seemed like the walls was falling in on me. Then he said, "Have you ever been to AA?" I said, "AA? What's AA?" He said, "That's Alcoholics Anonymous." When he said alcohol, it got my undivided attention. And I whipped that chair up under his desk, and I said, "Where's this AA deal you talking about?" He told me, "Downtown St. Joseph Hospital." He said, "I think they got a meeting down there tonight." After I was around here about 2 or 3 years, I found out they had a meeting down there every night. And he said, "I suggest you go down there." Well, I went down there because I figured y'all would teach me something about the liver business. And I had a nervous condition, too. I forgot to tell you about that. And I've always been one bleeding different strokes for different folks, and I still believe it today. And I go down there to Alcoholics Anonymous. Thought it was all, that's all Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't know it was all over the world. And I go up there, and as I remember, I'm going to say I believe there's 25, 30 people there. Half of them looked like they was happy they was there, and the other half looked like they hated like hell because they was there. And I was just there, you know. And I'm doing all right in Alcoholics Anonymous till old Bill got up. Old Bill run around town. He smoked an old crooked pipe. He been around so long, he's a fire hazard. He said, my name's Bill, and I'm an alcoholic. And I can't never take another drink of alcohol one day at a time. Expect anything good to happen. Bang, my mind closed. I got up and said, that damn doctor got me in the wrong room. And I left Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, I won't tell you, I had to go walk through the valleys of the shadow of death for some 2.5, 3 years longer. And when I finally got back here to y'all, I was damn near too simple for you. And I remember my sponsor, the greatest man I ever knew. I remember my sponsor was raised up together, and he was sorry. Now, he was sorry, and I was. And I was always going to quit when I got bad as him. I was watching him. And he come up missing. I hadn't missed him, but some people had. He been up here sober with y'all 17 years when I got here. And I come on over to the old 24-hour club. They told me I was welcome. There's some old boys there I knew by reputation. Some of them I drank with. And my sponsor was there. And they tell me wasn't nobody there to tell me whether I was alcoholic or not. Told me he was glad I was there. Man, that's good news. First time I'd heard that in a long time. I got up to leave, and they invited me back, and I sat back down. I was scared they'd change their mind. They'd find out about me, and they wouldn't want me back. I stayed around that old club over 100 days and nights. I'd go home just long enough to change clothes and get back over there. Because I knew that something had happened to these guys. Because I knew something about them. I knew they had changed. I knew they didn't smell like they used to smell. I knew they wasn't talking like they used to talk. And I knew they were smiling and laughing. And I hadn't laughed in a long time. I remember the first time I laughed in Alcoholics Anonymous. I really do. And it was great. The greatest thing ever happened to me. And that's what this old guy said, and some of y'all might remember his old book. He said, and I got the Alcoholics Anonymous, my old shoe had a hole in it that big around, so that I could step on a piece of gum and tell what flavor it was. Man, I just cracked up. Then I grabbed myself and I said, what in the hell are you laughing about? There ain't nothing. Then I said, yes it is, yes it is. And I've come to believe today that a merry heart is good medicine. A merry heart is good medicine. We have to remember we cried too. I don't know. I remember at about 23 years old, I was going down the tube, I knew that. Well, really what was happening, my wife was going to leave me. She had a good job, and I didn't like to work too much. And I was one of them kind of drunks, you know. I think when I got my wife, you know, I was working down there, I needed some responsibility. That wasn't responsible. So I decided I'd get me some responsibility. And so I decided I'd get married. I was about 23 years old, and I was getting old. I said, I better do something about this now. And I picked out a victim. And I'm telling you, We got married, and did nothing change. Nothing changed. Old Joe just kept on doing what Joe wanted to do when he wanted to do it. Man, I can buy that part about me in the book. Selfish, self-centered to the core. So it lasts about a year before she started. I went in there one day, I come in off one of my drunks. I used that place for a drying outhouse, you know. And I come in off one of them, and she was packing up her things. I know y'all understand things. We first got married, it'd take a couple of pickup trucks to get our things around. But you live with a thing like me for about a year, you can get everything you got in the apple box. She's putting her things away, and I asked her, what are you doing? She said, well, Joe, I've had all this I can stand. She said, I'm packing and I'm moving. And I said, well, baby, if you'll pack mine, I'll move with you. Because I'll tell you, at that time, I needed somebody to take care of me. And during this time, my mama married a man on the sawmill. And his home to mama up here in East Texas, moved up to Corrigan, Texas. I don't know if any of y'all ever moved home to mama or not. But now, there ain't no must to say in Alcoholics Anonymous. But in mamas, it's to must. One of them is you must not drink. And the other is you must go to church. Well, living under her roof, got to go by her rules. So I started going to church. Something happened to me in that church. I got feeling real good. Wasn't drinking, working every day. But you know something happened. I got to thinking. I got to thinking. And you know what I was thinking about? That preacher. That guy goes dressed up all the time. He drives a nice looking automobile. And he don't work near as much as out there. He just works a little bit on Sunday morning. And right out there in them woods, I called myself into the ministry. I ain't got no education. I tell everybody I got a Ph.D. I suppose told digger what it means, really. And I go a little further on up in East Texas to this college. I don't even remember what grade I went to. I don't think it was past 5 because I couldn't count much higher than that. And I goes up there to see this president of this college. And I come out of there and I'm enrolled as a student in college. Ain't that something? Nutty as a peach orchard boy. I was doing real good till I got to thinking. You know what I got thinking about? The most loving thing that you could think about. My friends on the waterfront. They're all drinking and they're going to die and go to hell. And it's my duty, since I've come up here and learned all about the soul-saving business, is get back down there and save their soul. What really was happening, I was going crazy as hell. And I didn't know what was wrong till I got into this book. I was irritable, restless, and discontented. But I made a decision. Ain't it wonderful when you make a decision? It's just like an old ball busting. Don't it feel so good? I decided to go save my friend. I loaded my old car down with songbooks and Bibles and pamphlets. I was on a mission. Well, at that time, from Houston to Texarkana, it was awful, awful dry. But all the way back down, I was headed for Harris County line. But I'm telling myself what a good boy I've been and what I really, really needed was a beer. And I never thought about a beer before in my life. I thought about it in gallons, and barrels, and shiploads. And I come up on the Harris County line. Closer I got to it, the happier I got. They even sang a little bit, whistle. And when I got to the Harris County line at that first beer joint, that old car pulled in there like I'd been going in there every night for the past 9 months. And I had that beer. And I sobered up 19 years later in the insane asylum. I ain't talking about no alcoholic recovery ward neither. I'm talking about in there where they put them mattresses up against the wall, keep you from beating your brains out. Talking about sometimes you come to and you're in one of them canvas jackets, they zip up in the back. They call them straight jackets. Sometimes I was tied to the bed. I don't know why they tied me to the bed. I wasn't bad about falling out of bed. I was tired. That particular drunk, that old policeman down in Victoria, Texas, dried me out. Oh, I've been dried out in all kind of ways. All kind of ways. Jailhouse, good way to get sober. I don't know where we were going, but we flew around there in Texas. I was down there in Houston. I picked up my old drinking buddy. Sad he had died drunk. I went to talk to him about our wonderful program. He told me if I wanted to drink, take a drink with him. If I didn't get back down there, them people didn't want none. And he was killed about 2 or 3 weeks later. We were driving around town, one of them liquor deals had on a big sale on. 2 for the price of 1. Oh, buddy. Now, good thinking drunk ain't going to overlook a deal like that. So we whooped in there and we bought a case of wine, about a gallon, and he gave us a case. So that's why I really don't know whether we was going somewhere or coming back from somewhere. So we was all down South Texas. And it come time to cross that old Guadalupe River, and at the same time it come time to take a drink. And it's hard for me to drink out of a gallon jug and drive. So I turned the jug up, and off in the river we go. And I'm sitting down. The reason I'm telling you this to remind me of how powerless I was and how close to death I was. I'm sitting down there laughing and giggling and telling myself I can get out there if I want to, and that water just coming in that old car, them song books and Bibles and pamphlets and wine bottles floating around me, and I'm giggling. This lady up there says, "Anybody in that car?" And my buddy got up on the bank and said, "Yeah, there's an old drunk Baptist preacher." Said, "Lord have mercy." Said, "Say that, man." Well, that old judge, he dried me out. I think it was 60 days. It could have been 90. I done it one day at a time, just like I do this program. Yeah, when I got here, the group I come in, most everybody wasn't there, either out of the penitentiary, nut house, off the pea farm. And I kept hearing them talking about being in all in jail. And that scared me. Because I didn't keep up with mine. I didn't know it needed for a reference when I got here. You know. But I know they going to jail ain't what made me an alcoholic. Drinking alcohol is what done it. And I'm one of them guys, I believe, man, I don't know. It don't really make no difference. I just know first time I drank, I got drunk. And I stole the man's automobile. I don't even know why I done that. Couldn't drive. I had never rode in many cars. But I done it. I went to jail. But since I quit doing things to go to jail for, I don't go to jail. Since I've been sober, I look back on it. Every time I went to jail, I was drunk. But every time I drank, I didn't go to jail. Every time I got DWI, I was drunk. Every time I drove drunk, I didn't get a DWI. Every time I got one, I was drunk. I just take a little thinking, think all that up, you know. Well, anyway, that's enough of that, y'all. I want to talk about recovery. Well, anyway, my old sponsor called me out on the front porch. He said, I heard them telling you in there that there wasn't none of them could tell you where you was alcoholic or not. He said, Joe, I love you, and I don't want to see you die drunk. He said, I'm going to tell you, if you ain't an alcoholic, you're the sorriest son of a bitch that I ever met in my life. And you know he was right. He said, do you want to get well? I said, more than anything in this world. He says, you can. Provided that you do a few simple things that you do. And he burned into my consciousness. And it says it in this book. Burn into the consciousness of it, that he can get well. And I think people get getting well mixed up with recovery. Getting well means being in good health. Good health. You see, I recovered, and I know what I recovered from. The condition I was in when I got here. Physically, I was a finished product of the brewer's art. Mentally, I had malnutrition of the mind. Spiritually, I had gangrene of the soul. I have recovered from that today. There's a little statement in this book. I love this book. I don't like to get too far away from this book because it's got everything in it that I need to know to live 124 hours. And that's what it's all about. It tells me there, we find nothing incompatible with a huge spiritual experience and a sane, happy, useful life. Well, I don't know about you. When I got here, I didn't have no sane, happy, useful life. Today, I feel like I'm worth something. I felt like I was worthless when I got here. And it all come through this. It came through people that's sitting in this room. There's people in this room that was very, very important in my sobriety when I first got here. And all of you that's coming behind is very important. See, I learned, or try to learn. I become teachable because I had to. I had to. Because on October 26, 1969, I stood at the turning point it talks about in this thing. And I'll tell you what I really think happened. I think it's time for God to take my card and punch me out. I think that. I believe that. And I wasn't ready. And I realized that I had never lived. I had only existed. Only existed. And I said, God help me. That's all I said. The greatest prayer I ever said in my life, God help me. And I can tell you today, he's been helping me every day since then. And when I was in that asylum, there was another boy up there with me, and I'll be eternally grateful for Fred. And I saw him 8 years ago, 8 Christmases ago. And he had 51 days. But he introduced me to the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. I asked him, what was that big book that woman talking about at the meeting? I knew it was the Bible. And I'd tried the Bible, and it didn't work for me. He said, oh, you don't want to fool that, Joe. I said, them old alcoholics wrote. I said, you wait a damn minute. I told you when I first met you, ain't no alcoholic. So the only reason I'm up here is I got this cirrhosis of the liver, my central nervous system shot all to hell. But in case I wanted one of them, where could I get one? And he told me. And I didn't run off down there and get one right away. But I finally did. And I'm grateful I did. Because in that book I read a little statement that saved my life. It saved my life. It said an illness of this sort. An illness. Man, all my life people been telling me I'm just sorry as hell. You know good. You're sorry. I said to myself, you're sick. And I knew I was sick. And I knew I'd been sick a long, long time. And I said, I want to get well. And ever since I told myself I want to get well, I've been getting better on a daily basis. Right there in room number 3, I turned my life well over to the care of God. I took the first 3 steps of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. A lot of people out here saying all you do is make a decision. The decision without action ain't worth a dime to me. It's just like a brand new Cadillac sitting out there without any gasoline in it. It just won't go. I went down on my knees needing a drink in that nut house. And I said, God, I don't know what your will is for me, but I sure do want to drink. Well, I come up there and I did not want to drink. And I have not wanted to drink or needed a drink since that day. And I didn't do that. If I could have done that, I'd have done that when I was 23 years old. I'd have done it. I had nothing to do with it. He removed that. And I went to Bob and told him I'm ready to go. And that's when Bob told me I had about as much chance as a snowball had in hell staying sober outside the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm grateful I was born in this century. I really am. Prior to this century, there wasn't no hope for us. 60 years ago, there wasn't no hope for a tramp like me. Just keep it moving. And I like to see, I wish everybody read the big book. I do. If you got a drinking problem, or if you think you might be alcoholic, read it. But you know, like this old boy, little old boy went to Daddy and said, Daddy, I want to ask you something. He said, no, son, go ask your mama. He said, I don't want to know that much about it. So that's the way it is. See? That's the way that drops on. Now, I heard this other railroad man, so y'all know him, telling this one time, his story. They went down at Port Arthur or somewhere and picked this old railroad man up, got him sobered up, and they gave him his job back, and he liked to ride trains. And he bought him a ticket right out there El Paso, and they riding along, and he's sitting up in the coach, and comes nighttime, he goes back there and opens up before he's supposed to sleep, and there lay 2 good-looking women. He said, now, ladies, I got to tell y'all, I have joined Alcoholics Anonymous, and they told me I've got to change. And he said, one of you women got to find another place to sleep. So, you know, that's the way it is. My old sponsor wouldn't let me sit around and feel sorry for myself. He'd always catch me when I was lying. I remember about 2 years, the old 24-hour club, they call on you to talk there at that Saturday night meeting, they'd be about half as many there as it is here on Saturday night, because AA wasn't as popular then as it is now. It wasn't, I mean, you know, you had to travel to go to meeting every day, every night. And they asked me to get up there and talk. Man, I had arrived. Never rode the job, never take another drink. I got up there and at the end of it, and I really meant that, I believe. I said, well, I just love every one of y'all. And stood down, and then he said the Lord's Prayer, and here he come. Come down off them steps and come over and said, Joe, ain't you learned that this is an honest program? You got to watch what you saying behind that podium. I said, well, what did I say you didn't like? He said, you just said you loved everybody. He said, what about Wayne? I said, oh, that son of a bitch. But I can tell you all today, I love Wayne. I really do. Because when you can love Wayne, you can love anybody. And I remember him getting me through a lot of my sponsor was the most simple-minded man I've ever known. Everything he told me, I could understand. And he knew it needed to be that way. I'm sitting in there feeling sorry for myself. I don't know why us alcoholics love to wallow in that self-pity. Poor me. You know, Jilly gets him to pour me a drink. He just keep on pouring me. I'm sitting in there one day and I got me a good case of the poor me's going. Just enjoying it. He walked in there and said, dummy, what you doing? Sitting there feeling sorry for yourself. Asking yourself, why me? Poor old me. He said, why are you asking yourself, Phil, why? Won't you ask yourself, why did God pick two tramps like me and you up and set us up here with these nice people and give us another shot at it? He said, we didn't do nothing to deserve it. And he said, you better never forget that. And about that time, they brought no boy in there. It was a drying out house. He was sitting over on that couch, and boy, he had the jumps. He's getting at that. He said, he never told me what to do. He just always told me what he done. He said, now if I was in the shape you in right now, what I'd do, I'd go to the coffee bar and I'd get that old boy a cup of coffee. And I'd take it over there and I'd set it down on that coffee table. And I'd sit down by that guy and I'd put my arm around him and I'd tell him, I'm glad you're here. I know how you feel. And he'd turn around and walk out the door, and he turned and looked back and he said, for God's sake, Joe, if you decide to do it, don't give him none of your opinions because they're sick. That's what I tell you. I got mad at him. And I went over there and got that boy a cup of coffee. And I went over there and I set that coffee down and I sat down beside him and I put my arm around him. The first man I ever put my arm around, unless it be my father or maybe one of my uncles. And I said, I'm glad you're here and I know how you feel. And you know it hurt and went away. The greatest insurance we have against the drug is intensive work with another alcoholic. It works when everything else fails. There's no reason today for anybody that's in this room that's alcoholic to ever take another drink. All the cover's been blowed off. If you drank, it's because you'd rather be drunk than sober. I believe that. You don't have to. I believe that. For me to drink is to die. When I first got here, they told me that, and I thought, oh, I just wouldn't fall over. No, I wouldn't. That'd be the easier, softer way. I'd have to go back to that hell from where I come from. I'd have to go back physical, mental, and spiritual dead. And I don't want to go back there. I don't want to go back there. I know what's back there. I know what's back there. I don't know what's ahead. But everything that's been ahead is so much better than what's back there. My sponsor and them told me to get better when I got here. And I told them it don't have to get no better. It's better than it was. And that's the way it is today. I don't care what comes down the tube. It's better than it was. It's better than it was. I brought nothing with me to Alcoholics Anonymous but a whole bunch of sick. A whole bunch of sick. Everything I have today, I owe to this program. Everything I have has been added since I've been here. And if I'm not grateful for what I have, I'll lose it. I believe that with all my heart. I remember when I was, I told you I was a Baptist. Used to love to go to church and Sunday school when I was a little boy. Go every Sunday morning, I'd get some clothes, clean clothes. I like to hear them sing. That old deacon, that old preacher would give me a nickel or a dime to ring that church bell. Then I'd have to spend all the rest of my time trying to figure out how I was going to keep them seeing I didn't put it back in that hat when he went around. Because I wanted to buy me some snuff with it. Didn't want to give it to them. I never doubted in my whole life if there was a supreme being. I believed in a creator. But I think today the God of my understanding when I got here was my grandmother's God. And he was a punishing God. And I was going to the barbecue. I knew that. My sponsor asked me, "Do you believe in God?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I believe in God, man. We were raised together, but I don't know nothing about it." He said, "That's good." I said, "Now we can start on your AA program." I said, "Joe, well, I'm going to tell you what he really said. Don't sound too spiritual." He said, "Before you get too honest, you go in there and steal you one of them big books." He said, "If you make it, didn't have to steal no big book. They give me one when they turned me out of asylum, and I still got it." And he said, "Joe, that book will tell you everything you need to know about God. To stay sober, 124-hour period." Of course, I didn't understand too much about this 24-hour deal right then. He said, "First it's going to tell you that you ain't him. Then it's going to tell you what he is, the creator of the universe. Then it's going to tell you who he is, the spirit of the universe. Then it's going to tell you where you can find him, deep down within." And all my life and all as far back as I can remember, if it ever happened to me, it was going to be something flying and land on me and wash me white as snow. And I wasn't going to want to do like I used to do when I'd go to Sunday school or to the little school, get out on the floor so I could look up on the little married dress and all that. Thought that wasn't going to happen no more, It still ain't happened. He said it'd tell you all you need to know. And if you will do what it says do, the best you understand to do it. In the first 164 pages in the big book, you will recover. And you'll know what you recovered from. And you'll know how it happened. And you won't have to depend on fallible people like me. The greatest man I ever knew. He's been gone now about 12 years. And the things he told me is more meaningful to me today than it was when he was here. God, he was so simple. I remember the first time I dreamed I got drunk. Oh, man. Man, that's terrible. They used to talk about reservation. I never hear them talk about reservations in Alcoholics Anonymous anymore. When I got here, they talk about you got to get rid of your reservation. And they all told me, said, the only way, two ways to get rid of them. One of them drank them away and the other pray them away. Well, I'll tell you what. I went and had that night, and I was about 9 months sober. And it was just as real. I come to, man, and I was shaking and jerking, and man, I hated me. I said, Joe, you have done it again, man. You have destroyed the only decent thing you have ever done in your life. And then I come to, oh man, sweating. And then, whew, boy, and I run over there the next morning. My old sponsor Jenny didn't get up about dinner time, but there he was standing on the porch. I said, you know what happened to me? No, he said, what happened, dummy? I said, well, I dreamed I got drunk last night. He said, boy, that's good. He said, have you been asking God to remove these reservations? I said, yeah. He said, well, that's one you won't have to drink away, so just keep on asking him. So I'm glad he told me that. It was good news to me. And I'll tell y'all from the bottom of my heart, I love the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I love AA people. I'm where I belong. I know you might not. Well, you can't blame me for the way I am. It's your fault. I wasn't this way when I got here. I ain't what I'd like to be, but thank God I ain't what I used to be. I ain't what I used to be. And I love this part in the book where it says, when we draw nigh to God, he discloses himself to us. You know, and I was around here a long time before God disclosed himself. Well, not too long. First time God disclosed himself to me was in a little puppy dog. My family we'd had a dog, old dog. Everybody just loved old dog, but it just got old and got feeble and had to have it put to sleep. And they give my daughter another little old puppy dog. Pretty little old puppy dog. One of them fuzzy ones. And I was home reading a big book. He got under my recliner. And I shoved that recliner down on his head and mashed it flat as that book. About that time they drove in. I went run out there and said, well, I just killed your dog. They grabbed it up and took off to the veterinary. Boy, and I was hating myself for that. I just barely. I'd heard them talking about praying. Juanita's one taught me about that. So I got down on my knees and I said, God, they told me if I'd start praying that you'd do things for me. I said, now I heard that I killed that little old dog, I think. And that dog ain't done nothing to nobody. And them kids just lost that one dog. If it can be your will, now why don't you let that dog live? Well, here they come back, sad. I said, what did the veterinarian say? Said, well, call him in the morning. Well, we sitting there early next morning, drinking coffee. The phone rang. Marie answered the phone. Smile come on her face. Come over, I said, what did he say? I knew what he'd done. He said, I don't know what happened to this dog you brought over here, but said about midnight, said he got up and started turning flips and barking. Said, you can come get him. Said, I don't know what happened to him. Well, he was a little bit squirrely after that. Well, He lived to be a lot old dog, you know. And you know, that give me a lot more faith. And I remember the first time I cried. The first time I cried. You know, big, grown, strong, tough people don't cry. But I remember the first time I cried, and it felt good. An old boy used to work for me when I was a big shot, longshoreman, foreman. And he come over to 24-hour club. He said, Joe, did they help you up there in Austin? I said, man, they sure did. He said, will you carry me up there? I said, I sure will. It was on Christmas. Christmas, day before Christmas. And carried him up there to Austin. Told him I'd go back by and tell his wife and kids that he was all right. Went back by there Christmas morning and walked in the house, and every one of us in here know how the house looked. No Christmas, no tree, no nothing. And I went home, and it broke my heart to see them little kids laying there. And I knew we was fixing to go where my folks was pretty well off. And I went, knowed we was going there, and there was them kids. No Christmas tree, no Christmas. And I cried. And my little daughter caught me, and she said, Daddy, what you crying about? I said, baby, I've seen something that broke my heart. And then she started bawling. And it done me good. And that very night, I went to a meeting. And there was a lady speaking that I love very dear, Connie Mary. And I never had seen Connie Mary before. And I was sitting right down on the front row. She looked down there. How long has it been since you cried, baby? She said, I'm not talking about your own selfishness and self-centeredness, but I'm talking about somebody else's problem. She said, well, don't worry about that. So that's God's way of washing your eyes where you can see the other side of the picture. Thank God for tears. It washes our eyes so we can see the other side of the picture. I know that I've been up here a long time and probably hadn't said nothing. But I thank y'all for being here. And I thank God that I'm here. The best I've ever heard this program sung.